Okay, we're going to resume the meeting. We're going to resume the meeting now. Next, we have Christian Brown.
Good afternoon, Supervisor, board members. Christian Brown from the law firm Son Ward Cosciagnano, 333 Earl Ovington Boulevard, Uniondale. I'm here to speak about the moratorium and the Woodmere Club issue. I'll try to limit my comments, obviously, to the 5 minutes. But by way of background, the board had brought up a number of questions, and perhaps I can fill you in with some information right now. I'm asking you today, with all due respect, not to extend the moratorium again, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But by way of background, as you know, the Woodmere Club has obviously now been the cause of a lot of consternation in the community. It is a large piece of property. There's 58 acres in Woodmere, 20 acres in Lawrence, and 30 acres in Woodsburg. It's zoned in the Residence B district. As you also know, there's only one use allowed in the Residence B district, and that's single-family homes. The minimum lot size in the Residence B district is 6,000 square feet. The Residence B district, I would say, covers at least 90% of the town's residentially zoned properties. And all of the residential properties under the town's jurisdiction that surround the club are zoned Residence B. Now, the club, and obviously I represent the owners, the now owners of the club. The club has never sought to change that zoning and is not contemplating and has never contemplated developing it with anything other than single-family residence. So the whole issue of whether or not the property should be rezoned, I think I think the rezoning process and the moratorium are not really necessary to address the legitimate concerns that the town and the community has about what the development will ultimately be. The town imposed the moratorium supposedly with the goal of studying the potential development of all private golf courses, but I think everyone would agree that the impetus for the moratorium was the potential development of the Woodmere Club. The stated purposes of the moratorium was set forth in the adopted language, which I'll quote. The town board notes that the key aspect of accomplishing the goal of protecting the area character is to ensure that substantial new residential development beyond a lot of a minimum size and subject to dimensional area requirements that are fairly consistent with the existing residential lots in the surrounding area. But it already is consistent with the residential lots in the surrounding area because it's zoned Residence B. The other parts are zoned Residence B. So that rationale, to me, for the moratorium doesn't make a tremendous amount of sense. That's not to say that any of the comments that the board mentioned earlier or that the public has about what ultimately will be there are illegitimate. I don't take that position at all. But there is a process, and I think Councilman Blakeman alluded to it, for dealing with the subdivision of property, and that would be based upon engineered plans presented through the Nassau County Planning Commission, through the villages, through the various boards with jurisdiction, where issues like environmental impacts would be fully vetted out, where issues like density would be fully vetted out, the creation of roads, etc. There would be an actual plan presented that the developer would have to provide, of course, probably a full environmental impact statement to be commented on by all of the involved agencies and so forth. It would be actual data for the municipalities and the public to look at. So what I'm trying to get to is, with this ongoing moratorium and sort of a process that's now gone on for well over a year, it's really impossible for my clients to move forward with the project even in an initial stage. Just to develop a map, a proposed map to be submitted to Nassau County Planning Commission, which is where we would start because they have the overall subdivision jurisdiction, would probably cost in excess of $300,000 because they require a fully engineered set of plans even to begin. So if we were to submit such a map and then have the town subsequently change the zoning because we want to comply with the zoning, we're not looking to go outside of what is allowed, the map that we provided could be rendered thereafter non-zoning compliant, and now you've wasted $300,000 or so on the project.
Mr. Brown, can I
Yes,
ask you a
sir.
question?
Sure.
On the town portion of the Windermere Club, is it your client's intention to develop it up to what is currently zoned 244 building lots?
Well, I guess that comes to my ultimate point. It's what my client had hoped to do would be to engage in a process with the town to hopefully arrive at a number and a map that was agreeable to the developer and the town, with, of course, input from the public. I don't want to comment on what would be proposed because it's hard for us to say right now what would be proposed given all of the various things that are in flux, and we haven't been able to do the adequate studies on our own because of the reasons I mentioned, since we don't know what will be allowed to do. In other words, yes, sure.
If we reduce the density that currently exists from 244 building lots to 77, would your client comply with that?
I don't, as the proposed legislation that has been released to this point, no, we have serious disagreements with the restrictions, not just on lot size, but some of the other requirements that are being proposed. I would like to emphasize, along the lines of the comments that were made by Councilman D'Esposito and yourself, that while we do not wish you to extend the moratorium, we do wish to engage with you in the coming weeks to try to reach a compromise or reach an agreement or make some progress, have some input into what the town ultimately does. We remain very concerned because of the unwieldy nature that the process has undergone over the last 2 weeks. And beforehand, we've been waiting for a year or so for this Cameron report. We were surprised to see the legislation came out. Apparently the report wasn't done. My understanding is that it's still now in a draft form, and yet we're looking at a proposed zoning ordinance that is supposedly based on the report. So that is of great concern, and I just want to say, because I think it's just important to note that my client wishes to make clear, as you've indicated, Mr. Blakeman, that we will take legal action if necessary. I'm not in the habit of threatening litigation. It's not my intention. But when you hear talk about potentially not only rezoning it, but at a later time even trying to condemn it in some way, to take it as a park, it raises grave concerns. And there are very serious claims, obviously, that could be brought here in the nature of 1983 types of claims. You need only to look at the city of Long Beach, I think, to see that these kinds of claims, if prosecuted properly, can end up to be not only very expensive in terms of legal fees, but can expose municipalities to significant damages. And we don't want that. I'm not saying that.
Mr. Brown, let me say this.
Yes.
I can only speak for myself. I do not take that as a threat. Obviously, your client has legal rights, and in consultation with his counsel, with you and your firm, yes, you will make a determination as to what you want to do with respect to anything that we may do in the future. My suggestion to you and your client would be to engage the community and talk to the community and see if there is some accommodation that could be met in the community. Right now, the community is pretty clear that under the current zoning, it's not consistent with the character and nature of the community, and it would cause significant environmental, traffic, and flooding issues, as well as other quality of life issues. So my suggestion would be to engage with the community, and certainly I can't speak for Councilman D'Esposito, but our office is open. If there's some communication you would like to send to us that outlines your position, we'd be more than happy to hear from you.
Well, we would very much like to do that, and we would hope that we'd be able to engage in it's a complicated matter, and so it's difficult to not discuss it at a table with the professionals, with the engineers, looking at possible maps and impacts.
Okay.
Yes,
That's something that we can explore going forward, so you can reach out to the councilman or to my office.
I'm going to do that. So again, we're looking to move the project forward. We want to engage the community, but we need to know what parameters the town is going to set. That's why we're asking you to please not extend the moratorium. I think to do so would be illegal on its face because you've done it so many times now, and engage in a dialogue with us over the next couple of weeks to see if we can come to a fair resolution that we can present to the community.
Okay.
Mr. Brown, you're familiar with Mr. Ra and Mr. Regina?
I am.
Would you communicate with them, and any discussions you want to have with them on any of those issues? I'm sure they're happy to make themselves available to you.
I will speak with both of them, and I would hope to sit down with them and discuss some of the details as we go forward. Thank you very much.
Ephraim Genzelberg?
Ephraim Gersberg. I live on 450 Harrison Avenue, Highland Park, New Jersey, 08904. Chris Brown represents me. I'm one of the two owners. You heard from my partner 2 weeks ago when he asked you to engage in an open and constructive dialogue. I want to set the record straight. We've sat here for 1 year asking to meet with professionals. We have sat here and had our professionals look at you guys and ask to meet with Cameron, ask to meet with people to discuss. We are the largest landowner in this area. No one will meet with us. You guys talk about noticing people. Do we get a notice? Do you get a phone call? I don't know how you do this, but we are constructive developers who want to work with the surrounding area. Has one local person, has the Stop Woodmere Club, have they reached out to us? Not one person. And now you want to extend the moratorium. We did have someone there yesterday, Mr. Blakeman, and I appreciate, and I have to tell you, I thought you and Mr. Pizzito did an unbelievable job controlling what was an unruly crowd. But having said that, to now say, let's talk now, we're putting in a moratorium which is patently illegal. And so for the record, and my lawyer is a very nice guy and he doesn't want to threaten lawsuits. It's not a threat if it's a fact. Within 10 days, we are filing a lawsuit against you against this moratorium. It's a fact. And I'd like to just say that when you pass this zone, I just want to comment one thing. We talk about an open process, but an open process isn't Mr. Cameron getting up yesterday and stating an illegal position that we left this report as a draft report so we could hear the public's comments and then rewrite the report, which is what he said last night on videotape with CBS there. I mean, there's legality here that you guys are just ignoring. And so, I'm new to it. I apologize. Okay, I apologize. But to say now, Mr. Blakeman, respectfully, Councilman Blakeman, now we should engage, now we should talk. We're happy to talk. We would love to talk with you. The neighbors yesterday came in with a park, okay, a park. If you guys want to spend the money, it's hundreds of millions of dollars, it's fine. With regard to if you do pass this ordinance as it is constructed now, we will forewarn you. We are not here to threaten. We are here to educate. If the currently proposed ordinance is voted on and passed in the future, we will be suing the town of Hempstead to disqualify the new ordinance in federal court under Section 1983 of the U.S. Constitution, as well as sue for over $100 million in damages. If you think, to be clear, this is not a publicity stunt or for shock value, the damages are real, and if you've been following the case in Long Beach, which I hope you are, where they may be exposed to over $50 million for doing something very similar in a similar manner, this council's actions will create a huge liability for Hempstead. Think about the financial impact of the town if your actions are found to be illegal. Can the town of Hempstead afford $100 million in damages? Can you afford to explain to your constituents why you're in litigation costing the town over $1 million to $2 million in legal fees to create a gated community of mansions instead of affordable 6,000 square foot zones? This zone is consistent with almost every one of your zones in every one of your districts. Maybe Mr. Blakeman has a very small portion that are acre. Our professionals calculated a loss of over $2.5 million in property tax revenue that the proposed rezone will cause the town of Hempstead to lose, and more than $5 million of property tax revenue lost to the school system of Hempstead. Please note that our professionals have studied the area, and over 95% of the children attend private schools. It is a boon, a financial boon to all the people of Hempstead. Please note the financial benefit of having smaller, affordable homes without school-age kids costing the public schools any money is unparalleled. The tax revenue benefits to Baldwin, Roosevelt, Uniondale, and the greater Hempstead community are tangible. My partner came here last meeting to create dialogue because he truly desires to compromise on the current zoning in order to build a project that is workable between different constituents. But this compromise will only be out of court. Once we file in 10 days, we'll be seeking damages as well as this zone thrown out for legal and procedural reasons. If you choose to move forward, the cost of this litigation may be unparalleled. And Ms. Sweeney, you may have to establish another litigation reserve account. You can answer to your constituents why you're acting consistent with past administrations and have decided on litigation versus dialogue. I urge you to choose dialogue and do not pass this moratorium.
Okay, and sir, we obviously have a difference of opinion. Since you've indicated that you are going to engage in litigation, I think that your counsel should communicate with our counsel, because obviously now communication directly with members of the town board would be difficult. In addition, I would continue to recommend that you meet with the community, talk to the community. I think you should unveil what your plans are to the community. And if you unveil your plans to the community and give them an opportunity to be heard, then I think the more information is better.
I agree with you on that, and I'm happy to do that. Just one comment. First of all, to clear up the numbers, the way the camera report was done was just not engineeringly sound. We actually can do over 350 total houses. So we're clear. The 288 number is not a right number. It's 350. We're happy to. I don't know. I think you felt and I'm happy to take your advice. They haven't called us once. No one on this board has organized a public meeting between us and the constituents. Last night seemed pretty unreasonable and only want to park, even though you suggested something that we wouldn't tolerate anyway, would be in court anyway. You know, it was very generous of you for the neighbors. They didn't seem to take it that way. So I think you can feel the position that if they didn't take it to you, I'm thinking I'm not going to be the guy to convince them. But anything you want to do, any of the council people, especially Councilman Disposito and Blakeman, if you want to set something up or we could do that, that's fine. But I want to be very clear. We have not had one conversation with your professionals. We have not had one conversation with any of you. And I think it starts first with the town. It's like the tail wagging the dog. Don't you control the zoning, not the people? Thank you very much.
Rena Safra.
Thank you. I have a pile of more petition letters for the council members and for the supervisor. As you know, this has been a real hot button issue in the 5 towns, and I don't need to go over and over it, but I think that the feelings of the people who have to drive our streets and have to live on our roadways and have to live with our flooding really do need to have a say in what goes there. And I don't know of any new homes that are built in our area that anyone would consider affordable. Any new home that's being built in our area is being sold for $1 million or more. I don't consider that affordable. And I totally support the board extending the moratorium and making sound decisions that are going to last and have lasting effects for many, many, many generations going forward. Thank you.
Peter Stein.
It's good to see after all this time who our neighbor is going to be and how magnanimous he is in trying to create affordable housing. I come from the city of New York. I know what affordable housing is, and believe me, it isn't anywhere around the golf course. in terms of threats, if it walks, quacks, and has web feet, it's a duck. If that wasn't the threat, I don't know what a threat is. There's always the possibility of litigation. We all know that. What is it we want? We want to continue to live in a place where we can pull out of our driveways without having to wait 20 minutes to try to break into the traffic flow. We want to be able to not worry about when the next superstorm hits, our houses are going to be flooded. That's what we want. This is spun. He hasn't had an opportunity to talk with us. I've contributed money, so have my neighbors. There is an organization. It has a website. It has phone numbers. It has names. It has addresses. And I guess one could ask, what outreach has been provided by the developer? We waited patiently for your study, as you did. The results are in. It's not unreasonable to give people an opportunity to review it. Even the developer should have an opportunity to review it. If it only arrived here last Thursday, before he gets up here and tells everybody about how terrible and what he's going to do to you all. So I would suggest that the moratorium get passed for a little bit more time. I would suggest, and I am not an attorney, but then again, neither is the developer, there's something called eminent domain, and I've done some reading. I found places where eminent domain has been applied. Municipalities have taken private property and then turned it over to developers for private development. Maybe that's the way to go here in the face of threats. We want to compromise. We want to have a quality of life. Many of us worked hard. None of us are developers. We don't develop 100 acres at a time. Many of us worked very hard to buy our houses and our way of life to afford to live in the town of Hempstead. And we would hope that this board has the wherewithal to make sure that we continue to have some sort of quality of life. That's all we're asking for. I thank you for your time.
Yes, and Mr. Stein, just to reiterate, I think that this board has been very respectful of the property rights of everybody, including the owners of the Woodmere Golf Club, and that we have done everything in a very reasonable way and in a way that would, be sustained by judicial scrutiny. So I can't tell you how many times we are threatened with lawsuits as a town by people who are unhappy with decisions that we make, and unfortunately, that may be the result of what we do in the future. But again, Councilman D'Esposito and I and this board have said we've kept an open mind to everything. We still have an open mind, and we haven't come to any conclusions or decisions as of yet.
Thank you. I'd like to add one thing. I'll talk directly to the developer. Instead of making $1 trillion on this sale, maybe he'll only make $500 billion. When is enough enough? Thank you.
Felix Procacci.
Felix Procacci, 1165 Barnes Street, Franklin Square, New York. Just real quick on, I was going to talk in the moratorium, but this board, since I've been here, and I've read a lot of cases, I've become more of a, I never wanted to be in the law field. I've read so much stuff. This board regularly disregards the law all the time. I don't want to discuss it here, but they regularly disregard the law. I believe in order to save litigation, I asked earlier, did you talk to the guy? Apparently, from them, you never had a formal meeting. Hysterical meetings with constituents. Listen, let me finish. I don't want to discuss this. Go back and forth here.
Hold his time. Hold his time. For the record, Felix, I have met on at least 2 occasions with a developer, and we've been open to the developer to talk to them whenever they want to talk to us. However, now that we're threatened with litigation, the talk will have to be between the lawyers.
And just for full clarification, I don't even know who the developer is, and that was the first time I laid eyes on him.
He was here 2 weeks ago.
No, that was somebody different.
That
was his partner.
His partner, still a developer. Okay. But anyway, follow the law, okay? On item 28, since we're going to table it, I'll go through it really quick. We're going to vote it down. Let's put it that way. My mistake. Okay, the resolution is vague. There's too much. The population of the North Hempstead, which gets 30 minutes, is 1/3 the size of Hempstead. So if you're going to do a proportionality, it should be 90 minutes. The number 6, the idea that this is not a Q&A session. You know, this is a prejudicial dialogue here. Certain people, just today, I don't have to go to ancient history, just a few hours ago, we were supposed to talk on an adjournment. Instead of talking on adjournment, they talked about everything else, and there was no control over the dialogue. So when people are looking at the video of this and want to look at this resolution, we went off in this direction. You can't even get an idea of where we stand on anything because you'd have to watch the whole meeting instead of just watching a particular resolution section. It's prejudicial. Certain people get grouped together as far as if they're in a community, and it's been always that way. And this law, the way it's proposed, is for people the board doesn't want to hear from. So they'll impose the 3 minutes, they'll impose the no Q&A, they'll impose all the draconian things that are in this law. What is proper decorum? What is that defined? What is, derogatory slur? If I tell the truth and you get offended by the truth, I've said that I've made derogatory slurs because I read the budget. I read an ethics response, and then I was making attacks. I'm reading out of their documents, and I've been accused of attacking people by reading documents that were prepared by a municipality. They don't want to hear it, and then that's called attacking them. So it needs to be reworked. I'm glad it's going to be voted down, but we have to do it in this manner. I'm not sure.
Felix, I agree with you. That's why I tried to table it. The resolution that's published here was given to me by the town attorney. That was not my resolution.
Well, that's I could see it was.
And I actually had comments and changes to the resolution, and they were not incorporated.
Okay, I think just one more thing on that point. I think since the community is going to be affected most by this public comment, that you have community meetings in the neighborhoods at predetermined times posted on a number of Facebook pages, the website, so you can meet with the people who are going to possibly be coming to these meetings, and what do they want to hear? How can we make the dialogue better? How can we ensure that the town board's really listening to us and not just saying, yeah, and then go ahead and do something else? Okay, on the issues of all these lawyers, this is the judgment, which was never adequately advertised by Newsday, which should have said, Kate Murray, supervisor of the town of Hempstead, voluntarily accepted judgment in her name for violating the constitutional rights of 3 town of Hempstead residents. That was never reported. If you read the Newsday article that I have going back to, I think, January 13th, 2013, it's so vague, you have to be an attorney to understand it. And there were 8 defendants. 6 of them were employees of the town of Hempstead Animal Shelter, which was about roughly 6 out of 30, what is that, 1/5, 20% of the employees of the town of Hempstead Animal Shelter voluntarily took a judgment in their name with no stipulation for violating the constitutional rights of 3 residents. That's never been adequately, stated here. There was no reprimanding of those people by this board. It just went away. It was, Michael Deary says, no wrongdoing by either side, which made no sense, because how could you have a judgment with no wrongdoing? I mean, it doesn't, but the thing is, that's what we've gotten away with. Why you need individual attorneys, I don't know. They had 1 attorney. 8 defendants had 1 attorney. If you have a problem, I'm not sure what it is. You guys voted. Some of you voted for that. Give me 2 more seconds. Some of you guys voted for that illegal agreement with the union on a no layoff clause, But what are you going to say to you didn't want to discuss it at the hearing? It spoke for itself. I want to hear Joe Rod tell the judge that he says, Judge, we don't have to testify here. It speaks for itself. I want him to say that because that's what he told the constituents who came here and waited for many hours.
All right, Felix.
And that's what you
to wrap
told
up
us.
your
So I
comments.
want you to tell the judge that. And what are you going to do? There's no punishment even if you're found guilty. So I'm not sure what you need a lawyer for. What are you trying to prevent? Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. Valerie Lamb.
Valerie Lamb Baldwin. I just want to start really quickly with saying I apologize to council members because I don't have enough copies for everyone because my stupid printer ran out of paper this morning, but can I hand these in? These are all the same. I labeled them, and specifically to anyone whose statements are coming from someone within your district. In addition to this, I'm speaking specifically on item number 28, resolution 28, and this is from an Island Park resident. Dear Town Board, I'm a resident of Island Park and a registered Republican. Because of Valerie Lamb's passion and tireless efforts, she convinced me to cross party lines and vote for now Supervisor Gillen. Her impression was that Laura was a great person and that when the root is good, good grows throughout the tree from its foundation. I want to remind the supervisor that she asked her supporters for many things: to put lawn signs up with her name, to show up for her fundraisers, to talk to people about her values, to get involved with her campaign, and she encouraged people to ask her questions. I was at the Meet the Candidates night in Island Park where I bumped into Ms. Lamp, who I have known for about 10 years. We spoke at length before and after the meeting. This was at the Island Park Library where, if you recall, you stayed after to answer any and all questions the few of us had. You encouraged questions. In fact, you were quite thirsty for them. Remember, you also asked us for one more thing, our vote. How dare you now, in turn, ask us to not ask questions? This is appalling, and I cannot believe this is even in need of a vote. Councilman Diaz-Bazito, I ask that you shut this First Amendment offense down. I ask the entire board to do the same. Laura Gillen, I ask that you attempt to go back to your pre-election self and find the root of the person Valerie convinced me you to be. Respectfully, Debbie S. Island Park. Still on item 28, Supervisor Gillen, if you recall, October 18th, 2017, the budget hearing, you spoke on the budget hearing during public comment. You used all of your 5 minutes, and in addition to that, you asked 5 questions. Now, I understand there's some discrepancy in terms of where this came from. Some of it was from you, some of it was from Mr. Ra, but I do know that it didn't come from anyone else on this board, so this is why I'm speaking for the most part to you. During those questions, while you were seeking election, another question which was raised was brought up by a prior speaker, Lucille Defina. Specifically, what happened was she noticed an additional job posted, budgeted for the animal shelter for $83,000, and there was a different copy of the budget that was provided to Councilwoman Sweeney. So she had a copy that was missing about 60 pages. You remember that, right, Councilwoman? Okay. So there was a discrepancy, and you had piggybacked. You were the last speaker of the night, and you had piggybacked to highlight the fact that there was a different copy circulated, and you didn't want everyone to vote on the budget that night. My point is this. My point is that had this resolution already been in place, you would have never even had the chance to speak. You certainly would never have had the chance to ask your questions, to take away our right, I believe, to ask the people whose salaries we pay for through taxes public commentary, opportunity, and questions is, to me, outrageous. I think in addition to squashing this for now, there's a lot of important things that need to be considered, and I think that you guys should make an effort to vote, to work with the constituents to hammer this out. None of us who are here and sacrifice our time away from our jobs and livelihood, or if someone's retired, their time away from their family, their volunteer efforts, whatever it is that they do, none of us want to be here. We're here because something's important to us. Local government and involvement should be encouraged. And what a contrast. I mean, I remember when during your campaign season, okay, and after, while I was handling your social media, we used to talk about engaging the public and encouraging people to come to these meetings and speak their voice. When I was handling, still in January, your Instagram and whatever I had, I was posting notices for the public meetings and inviting people to come down. I look now at the community that I thought you were building, and I roll my eyes, I shake my head. It is not good. It's actually the opposite. This feels like we're treated like mushrooms. I literally call myself now porcini and other constituents portobello and shiitake because we're kept in the dark and we're fed, for lack of a better word, feces.
Mr. Lockaruba, could you please come forward?
Is this for me? Am I staying?
Really, it's just responding to a comment about the resolution.
I forgot to hand in this statement from another person.
Mr. Lockaruba, can you talk about how this resolution came to be on the calendar?
Sure. This resolution was introduced to the supervisor's office probably back in January by the town attorney, and it's been sitting, going nowhere, until it was requested that it be reintroduced by the town attorney. At that point, we've made amendments, as I think it's been mentioned that Mitch Pitnick has issued amendments to it that are not included in this resolution that's before the board today, and I think that's part of the reason why you've asked to have it tabled, so that these items can be considered before this is voted on. But the resolution never came from the supervisor's office. It was drafted in the town attorney's office, was not drafted by you or Mr. Pitnick or anybody else.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Though I do think it is a good idea for the public comment to be moved to the beginning of the meeting, because I think that that actually serves transparency and it serves the interests of the public. So this way they can be heard at the beginning of the meeting, and then they can leave and go about their day, and they don't have to sit around here. Look, it's after 3 o'clock, and we're not even close to public comment right now. However, if the public comment was moved to the beginning, it would have already been heard. You would have been out of here by 11:30.
I love that idea as well.
Thank you.
And I just need to say one thing, though, that other people from your administration, I won't name names for now, but they have also made very similar comments to me and other people, kind of lecturing me on what this opportunity is all about, and we shouldn't be bringing documentation, and this isn't really a Q&A session, which, by the way, is very Santino-esque, if you recall.
That's why I struck that in my modification to this resolution. This does not reflect my modification. This is not a question and answer session, was explicitly stricken by me from this draft that was not incorporated in the draft. That's why I've tried to table it. I also wanted more time, 60 minutes at least, so that people would have a larger opportunity to comment and we wouldn't be cutting people off.
Well, that's a relief, and I do appreciate that. But again, I just want to emphasize that other people from your office have said very similar things, if not identical, to things that were or were not being proposed as of a few minutes ago.
And if I can, I would just like to point out real quick. I really don't want to drag this out any longer than it already has been. I think we all get the point. But I do want to point out that if this resolution was drafted by the town attorney back in January, and it's now May, we've heard nothing about it. We've talked nothing about it. The last time I checked, the way the calendar is put together is by the supervisor's office. So I'm going to ask my board members a question. Councilman Ambrosino, Senior Councilwoman Gooseby, Councilman Blakeman, Aaron King Sweeney, Councilman Dunn. Has anybody sent a letter to force this issue onto the calendar for today? Okay, so the item was put on the calendar by the supervisor without any discussion with anybody on the board.
It was pushed forward by the town attorney.
The town attorney doesn't make the calendar, the supervisor does.
The town attorney presents resolutions, Mr. Lockaruba. Where do those resolutions come from? From the commissioners? Where do they come from generally?
We hold weekly meetings in the supervisor's office to discuss the calendar. Commissioners submit their resolutions to your office, and we present those at those meetings. Generally speaking, The resolutions put forward by the town attorney in that meeting come from the board. They don't come from the commissioners.
And I agree
very much.
1,000% with Mr. Lackaru, but I think the point is that, and I have a pretty good understanding of the day-to-day operations of the town of Hempstead, and the calendar is approved by the supervisor. And the only way that there's something added to it is if two council members, which I believe 2 Fridays before, have to submit a letter signed by 2 board members in order to force something onto the calendar. This was not forced on the calendar. So therefore, whether Mr. Ra gave it, whether Mr. Smith gave it, whether make up a name and they gave it, this was put on the calendar by the supervisor, not the town board, and we haven't discussed anything about it since the first week of January.
And when I realized my amendments to this resolution were not in there, I moved to table it so we could amend the resolution, and they refused to table it. Okay, Rich Shuren, you're next. Alicia Munian. See, this is why we really need to get the public comment in the beginning. Carl Gerardo.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carl Gerardo, 908 Washington Street in Franklin Square. I just want to make a brief comment regarding item 44, filling the vacancies for elected offices by special election. I just want to say that...
This item was tabled, Mr. Gerardo.
Yes, I understand, but I can make a brief comment on it. Yeah. Brief comment I want to make on it is just because something is allowed to happen doesn't make it right. When you create an artificial incumbency for the next general election, that takes away from us as voters who we want to choose. A lot of times people are put into place because they need to have someone to fill a spot that needs to get a record so they can run on the general election. I disagree with that. If a position becomes vacant, let's have the special election. Let the voters be heard, not a body choosing to pick someone to keep certain things in place. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. And that's basically just what I wanted to say. I encourage that you look into this and have a special election whenever you have a vacancy. Thank you.
Pearl Jacobs.
Good afternoon, Pearl Jacobs, Uniondale, President of the Nostrand Garden Civic Association. First, I would like to speak to my fellow Town of Hempstead neighbors in Woodmere, hoping that they will be successful in advocating against the developer. We recently had an issue in Uniondale with the Holly Patterson site. I know I spoke up as president of Nostrand Garden Civic Association, as well as Unite and other civics in Uniondale, advocating against this development. And unfortunately, it was passed by the town zoning board in spite of not having a SECRA report done on the water quality, as this was a former farm site where there was chemicals, fertilizers, and all such chemicals that were in the groundwater. So I would like to say that in spite of that, the developer was still successful. But that doesn't surprise me because it was Uniondale. And Uniondale does not matter in a lot of cases. But I just had to say that. Regarding item 28, I am against the resolution to reduce or revise our public speaking time in any manner that is not favorable to town residents. Residents take time out of their day for no other reason than to advocate and to speak to the issues that affect their communities. As a resident of Uniondale, a community that has historically been marginalized, excluded, and disenfranchised, I could sit here and speak before the council for 3 days, and that still would not be enough time to convey the myriad of issues that plague the Uniondale community. As a result of the town of Hempstead and a civic leader who continually brings forth the issues that are of most concerns to the residents of Uniondale, I would respectfully request incorporating favorable options for residents, i.e. more evening meetings, or to put public speaking on the front of the meetings so that residents won't have to leave to speak. And Councilman Esposito, you did say that it doesn't matter because, you know, everyone here is getting paid, especially on the council, but the residents here are not. Okay, it's now after 3 o'clock, I do think, and we're still here and we don't get paid, and that should give more credence to our advocacy for increased public speaking.
The comment was not that I get paid while I'm sitting at the meeting. The comment was that regardless of how we look at this, whether it's tabled or voted down, it's the same case for us. So by being tabled or voted down.
You did use the word paid. I just want to bring that up. You did say paid, okay? We don't get paid. That's why it should
Nobody said that you get paid.
It
You're taking it completely out of context and trying to make it something
Well, if I am,
that
I
it's not.
apologize for that, but you did say the word paid.
I accept your apology. Thank you.
I apologize for that, but I still say the residents do not get paid. We're here. It's after 3 o'clock, okay? And that should give more credence to our advocacy for enhanced public speaking. Thank you.
Nita Meriday?
Mita Meriday, Baldwin resident. It's definitely been addressed with regard to 28. Here's my comment about that, because I have quite a few things I need to discuss. And as I'm sure that now Councilman, but then Legislator Dunn can attest, I think I've probably been responsible for some of the extensive meetings in Nassau County, including the one they had yesterday, that I ultimately left at 5:30 and they were still meeting. As it pertains to having an opportunity for residents to speak prior to a meeting, I really don't have a problem with that. The problem that I have is that it takes away from, aside from the shenanigans and the back and forth in the clear dysfunction on this board, it takes away from the additional information that many of the residents are not aware of, particularly when we're dealing with the situations and the scenarios that are going on in our own communities. But we are impacted by things that are going on in our neighbors' community. So if we don't know what's going on in the 5 towns, but we know that it's going to impact us, we won't hear about it until there's the presentation. So if you're going to have the opening session for those who genuinely do have specific issues that they want to share with their elected officials before the meeting, I get it. I appreciate that you wanted to make changes. The 30 minutes, the 60 minutes, 3 minutes for each, I get it. That at least gives that group, that body, that opportunity. But let's also maintain the integrity of the process during the meetings so that residents who do have the additional time, or like those of us who have been here, who continue to make the sacrifice to be here, let's do that. But by the same token, let's include in this language the information that if you want your public, those of us who put you all in these positions for the most part, if you want us to conduct ourselves in a certain way and to have certain time frames, read all of the Open Laws Act as it pertains to how all of you should conduct yourself, how you should handle yourself, how you should handle discussions back and forth with each other. That's my point with regard to that one. Okay. Item 15, the resolution authorizing execution of agreement to provide employee assistance programs. I finally took an opportunity at 3 o'clock in the morning, because the only way that I can physically be here, and even though I am in extreme pain, the only way I can physically be here is because I have to work at night. So someone said earlier, unless you're crazy, to work at night, I'm one of the crazy people who has to work at night. So I was pulling this up at 3 o'clock this morning just so that I could be informed. Where are the reports and the recommendations as we're tossing out money to do employee assistance programs when the top of the food chain is acting the way that it's acting? And I looked at that agreement, I looked at that proposal, and it really looked like something that a teenager could possibly do back 20, 30 years ago with like a cut and paste format, and we're paying out hundreds of dollars on a monthly basis. What is the return on our investment in these processes? How are we addressing the bullying that you had on your platform about something that you were going to address? If this is how you're conducting yourself, there are no changes as far as I can see, and from what I've been hearing from many of the employees who are still afraid to speak up about the certain conditions that they have to work under. Where is that? Number 16, rejecting bid, authorizing rebid, Uniondale. Why was that? Who, again, are we looking at in terms of the types of services that we're providing in communities, particularly these communities that generally, unless you have someone who's a staunch advocate, we're talking about Bernard Brown Park. It's rejecting bid and authorizing rebid for construction of ADA-compliant bathrooms. And those bathrooms have been a hot mess for a long time, so come on.
On that item, I believe every single response that we got in was over the budgeted amount, so they have to retweak the RFP, and they're going to put it out to bid again.
Okay. It would help, again, if you have this type of information in there. Again, we have issues of impropriety. In the last 2 days, I've heard about 1983, and if the developer, as Councilman Bruce Blakeman said, a threat really is a threat. And clearly, Nassau County cannot seem to win a lawsuit, and they have bonded out in upwards of $100 million just for lawsuits. I don't want to hear about another $100 million potential lawsuit settlement. Don't want to hear about it. I really don't. Or, you know, I might have to pack up after being in this region for over 3 generations and maybe leave my house zombie like so many others are doing because I'm tired of all this nonsense going on here. 26, authorizing payment of a notary public fee. Really? How many attorneys we got here? Come on now. You can get something notarized at a library. We have to really start thinking about where our money is going, whether it's $10 or whether it's $10,000. We really have to, if everybody wants to be fiscally prudent and fiscally conservative and saving us money, let's start looking at those types of things that we need to be doing with regard to that. 24, this is the main one I really wanted to talk about. Authorizing the town of Hempstead.
Ms. Merida, I'm sorry, you're going to have to wrap up your comment.
I'll definitely wrap it up. Town of Hempstead to obtain a membership in the Long Island Community Development Organization. We don't follow federal guidelines. So what is the rationale for a membership in here to have somebody attend more workshops to discuss how we can incorporate federal funds for community development when we have no development as it pertains to veteran businesses, no development as it pertains to real jobs for our veterans, senior support programs as opposed to just maybe picking them up on a bus and taking them on an outing. You know, our youth programs are very subpar in summertime. What is the story with that? I don't even want to get on the legal issue because I don't want to get myself upset again.
Ms. Merida, I'm sorry, you have to wrap up your comments.
Okay, I'm wrapping them up. Last one, 34. We're talking about, again, rationale. Authorize the town attorney to execute a service agreement to provide assistance with certain potential air quality, noise, and vibration matters in the town of Hempstead. Is that a priority now over potholes? I want to know the rationale, and many other taxpayers want to as well. Thank you.
Commissioner Lino, I just want to make sure that I characterize that right about item number 16.
No, I know that we have. Have been done. Oh, you want to tell her?
Yes. Good afternoon. We were $50,000 over budget, and there was only one bidder for that situation.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I would like to do mine before you do. Well, I want this to go into the.
We have to finish.
Why can't I do mine now? I want to.
It's not on the administrative calendar.
It's important.
But we'll do it right after we have 2 more slips. Stuart Kroll. Diane Madden.
Diane Madden, Hempstead. Item number 28. What concerns me is that even if this came from Mr. Ra's office, this was put on the calendar by your administration, correct?
It was put on without the amendments that I made.
So you had suggested, so how could it have been put on without the amendments, without your permission?
When I realized that, I moved to table it.
Before this meeting?
Moved to table it once it was already on the agenda.
I'm still not understanding how it even made it to the agenda. And if this is an example of how you're operating, I think that you should put off making any changes to when the public speaks, because evidently we have to pay close attention to what's going on here. If resolutions that attack freedom of speech are thrown on the calendar and everyone's just pointing the finger, I wouldn't be in a hurry to try to get rid of the residents early in the day. I think we need to sit out and look at all of these resolutions even more carefully.
I'm not trying to get rid of residents. I'm trying to make it easier for them to make public comments. But if that's something that you're against, you can say it right now.
Well, I am. I mean, based on this and what happened here, this is, like I said, an attack on the Constitution. So if this is happening so casually, and again, you're blaming the town attorney's office while it was put forward from your office, that's a big concern. And I think that more residents need to be here to keep an eye on all of these resolutions under your administration. Under number 36, I'd like to know, are there any transfers from the animal shelter in or out?
The personnel resolution mainly has people going on family leave, medical leave. There's one person getting a raise.
No animal shelter.
No animal shelter.
Okay, what about internal transfers? I understand that the experienced adoption coordinator who was hired for this purpose years ago does an outstanding job, has an impeccable record, has been moved out of adoptions into the office of the main office, knowing nothing about the main office. So our key adoption coordinator is now removed from adoptions at the most vulnerable time of year for kitten season into an office where she knows nothing about, and a person that was trained to manage the office has now been moved into adoptions.
Is there anything else on the administrative calendar that you have? I'm sure we'll talk about that during public comment.
No, but that was part of transfers. My question was...
It's not a part of the personnel calendar, personnel agenda that's on the
Well, it's about
administrative
internal
calendar.
transfers.
Mr. Marino, would you like to speak to this issue now?
Good afternoon, Supervisor, Town Board members, Senior Councilwoman. Good afternoon to you. Department, after discussing with the Supervisor's Office, the Department of General Services decided to assign 70 employees to different assignments within their division, effective yesterday, Monday, the 7th of May. It's in the best interest of the town of Hempstead in opposition. We were correct?
That's not in the best interest of the animals. Why would you take an experienced adoption coordinator that was hired for that purpose, that has filled that job, that, as a matter of fact, I believe helped the town clerk just recently adopt a kitten, unless she had some complaints, which I highly doubt, about this employee? Why is this employee no longer in the adoptions at a, like I said, a crucial time of kitten season?
A number of operational changes being made at the animal shelter that they think are in the best interests of the animal shelter.
They think? Who's they? Do you understand what's happening here?
I understand that there are a number of operational changes that have been made at the animal shelter, yes.
So I can assume that you've basically put your stamp of approval on this transfer. That's really what I'm trying to get at.
This was a recommended transfer.
Recommended by who?
Recommended by the animal shelter director and by the commissioner.
So you are still taking recommendations by the commissioner and the animal shelter director. Is that how I'm to understand this?
I understand that operational changes were made at the animal shelter that they think are in the best interests of the animal shelter and the animals at the animal shelter.
Okay, well, I'm telling you, and I'm here to say that they are not. In fact, they're detrimental to their lives. And I think that's part of the problem here, that you are taking the word of the people that probably you are still, this is all part of your lawsuit. you know, the people that have been protected and secure in their jobs. And these are the people that you're listening to. You're not listening to staff. You're not listening to good volunteers. And you're certainly not hearing what I'm saying to you, that you don't take, in the interest of the animals in their health and well-being, you don't take experienced adoption people out of adoptions and put them in a front office where they know nothing, where the office is already overcrowded, where the main office, well, semi-manager, has gone out on leave.
Supervisor? It's Laura. It's me, Sylvia. I want to say I did deal with that particular employee at the town animal shelter, and she's exceptional. She's exceptionally kind. She was very kind to me and to my children because they were a little afraid at first because the animals were, you know, the dogs were barking. She's exceptionally kind and very skilled, I believe, at her job. So maybe, you know, someone may want to speak with her about possibly keeping her there because I thought she was, you know, exceptional.
Well, I thank you for those words, and coming from you, they're very meaningful. We've all known that. I've had my own experiences in the past where my daughter years ago, when we were having issues and these individuals first came in, we didn't see much improvement, and my daughter decided to volunteer, and Nancy was her mentor, and she came home and she says, "Ma, I think you got this one wrong. This woman is amazing. She's not here politically. She's here for the animals. She does the right thing."
She keeps following up with me and asking for my children.
Right. She's the expert. She's the kind of person that we fought for to get in there. And now, by the way, she's the last one under attack.
I don't really know what's going on with that, but I'm sure the supervisor
Well,
would speak.
I think your word has spoken volumes, and let's hope that the supervisor heeds your advice to take a look at this again, because these animals, you know, that kitten, and I do thank you for choosing to adopt, and I thank you even more, which I meant to do this privately, for not going in there and making a big deal about it and putting it all over the place as if it was about you. It was about obviously saving a life, and I just can't thank you enough for that. Thank you.
My statement because I'd like for it to go into the minutes. What is this about? I have the development of the property surrounding the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum, openness and transparency for the future prosperity of the hub. Recently, I read a Newsday article on the future of development of the properties surrounding the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. Hub development developer tells legislators about entertainment, retail plan. Hub developer tells, okay, I read that, as of on 5/2/18. As one of the officials who helped create the Mitchell Field mixed-use district for this parcel in 2011, after the Lighthouse project stalled, I have the background and depth to contribute to the conversation on this matter. Indeed, the other representatives whose districts surround the site also deserve to have been heard at the county legislative meeting that was held last week concerning the future of the hub. Not Hempstead was the hub, but now that is. While one of the members of this board spoke out at the meeting, a comment of openness and transparency should have led to the inclusion of myself and other affected board members in this meeting. Clearly, the voices of the first councilman district residents who live next to the hub deserve to be heard. I was surprised to read that Hempstead's town executive assistant of economic development, Adam Haver, and Evelyn Tennis, Nassau County executive for economic development, had been meeting on new ideas for the hub. Does it seem out of line to anyone else that the three board members whose districts include are directly about the Coliseum property have not been part of these meetings? I've worked hard alongside my colleagues on the town board to ensure the framework for progressive development of the hub. In 2011, then Supervisor Kate Murray and I presented the Mitchell Field mixed-use development for the area concerning the Coliseum. The future-looking zone provided for a refurbished Coliseum as well as a host of different uses. Prohibited construction includes hotels, convention center, health and technology facilities, business offices, restaurants, educational facilities, and mixed-use housing, among other uses. The density of permitted development is substantial, floor area ratio of 6.1. In fact, the development density is far greater than the Omni building, the Marriott Hotel, and the XR Towers, and building heights of 100 feet are accommodated. The town board worked collaboratively with the Retina Group and Sloan Kettering officials to ensure that the existing development moved at a rapid pace. Colleagues on this board stand ready to continue to work with prospective developers at the site on projects that are sustainable, and in the best interest of the communities that we represent. And this board has shown flexibility in zoning provisions, accommodating of reasonable and responsible growth. We will continue to have open minds and an open door on hub development. However, only when we work together in the open and transparent manner are the best interests of our residents served. I demand that meetings between Mr. Harper and county officials not be conducted without the knowledge of officials who represent the constituents in and around the hub property. I insist that we be included in such meetings, and I respectfully request that the supervisor commit to an open and transparent process, advising me and the other affected town board members of the meetings that concern the future of the property around the surrounding the Coliseum. Anything less is unfair to this board and the residents of this town. This project is too important to be conducted without the full impact of the entire town board. Thank you.
So the meeting that I appeared at was a meeting of the county legislature that was not called by me. It was called by the county legislature. It was a public hearing that was published and advertised in Newsday. I chose to attend that meeting. That's why I was there, because I chose to attend and I chose to make a comment. Any member of this board, as far as I know, could have appeared and made a comment. I did not prevent anybody from showing up at a meeting that I didn't even call. I just chose to make an appearance there, and I chose to make my voice heard with my opinion about development at the hub. And as far as I'm aware, I have reviewed the legal documents with respect to the hub. I don't know, have you, Councilwoman, reviewed the contracts relating to development of the hub?
I reviewed what I was provided last year, but no, I have not met with any developers this year. No one has presented anything to me.
So as far as I'm aware, the town has approved zoning in place. No one has approached me and said, we have an application to change the zoning in the town of Hempstead. If they do, certainly we would definitely need the councilwoman and the whole board to be involved. But there's been no presentation to me about changing the zoning. There's not even a plan yet. They don't even know who their developer is yet. There are two parties that have the right to develop that parcel. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not a lawyer representing the town, the county or Onexium. But from my understanding, the two parties that have a right to choose to go forward with development at the hub are the county or Onexium, who owns the lease to the Coliseum. Those are the parties who can move forward with plans. They're the parties who are working with developers. If they want to make a change in the zoning to the town, they have to bring that to us. Nobody has asked me to do that. I went to listen to the plan that was presented by a developer who's in the mix of possible developers at the hub. That's it. I listened to his plan. I thought there were some good things about it, and I commented on it.
Well, that's not what what I'm speaking of. I'm speaking of the fact that, first of all, we have someone entirely new that you brought in who knows absolutely nothing about it. There are 17 members on that board, and there's not one person from this town who knows the developers, who knows the fact of what the plans are that's on any committee. The town is not involved. You were there. We were not invited. I was not invited. I don't go to anything that I'm not invited, because if you have 17 members already chosen, no one from this town is on that. We have residents who live in Uniondale, who live in Garden City, who live in Westbury, so forth. They're all going to be affected by the increased traffic. We have apartments now that are going to be put up at Holly Patterson, and yet we have more apartments that's going to create so much traffic. And this is very important for the residents. They need to know what's going on in that area. They are different. There are some things that are different that I read in the newspaper that are being proposed. And you had a gold shovel that you were swinging around. Like I said, let's let it going. We don't know what's going. So that's what I know. It seems as if you approved it for us, and we have not.
Zoning was approved a long time ago.
No,
It was
it's
not
something
before I
different.
was here.
That's different things. What they're talking about, what I saw in there has absolutely nothing to do what the original plans were. They have something entirely different. I'm sure they're going to have to come back to the town to make sure that they are proper and they're safe.
If I could weigh in, it borders my district, so I'd like to weigh in on this too. Whether or not there's any changes in the zoning, I think the courtesy of coming, giving us a demonstration of what they think they might want to put there would have been nice for the town that they're going into to put up on these screens so the people in the audience can see it too, what they're doing there. We don't have to vote on it because if it's not a change in zoning, but sure would be nice to have the courtesy of letting that local government know what's going on. I'm sure that hopefully they're going to do it with the school districts. Let them know what the ramifications are going to be on the schools and the teachers and the fire departments. Let them know what's going to happen with the area. Yeah. But just a common courtesy, letting us know. Come and give us a little demonstration what you think you're going to put there. That's what I was a little disappointed that the contractor hasn't Have they contacted you to do that for us?
The developer, as far as I know, has not even been settled on. It's not certain that the Blumenfeld Development Group will even be the developer for that site. It could be completely open again. That's one of the things that's being discussed, opening up the RFP. That's not our decision, that's the county's decision. And so the county may open up an RFP and seek new partners for development. So there's not even a plan yet to let anybody know about.
Well,
and this is really
I would like
keep us in the loop.
I would like to say something because I think the hub affects the whole town at large. It's such a major project, and representing part of West Hempstead and Franklin Square and Elmont, it is material to my district as well, what is done there. One of the things that I was very concerned about when I read the material in the media about reopening this process was the fact that this was a long, exhaustive process that took place before I got here. Decisions were made. There was a plan. And now to try to reopen the plan and do something different is very concerning to me, and I'm going to be keeping a close eye on it, especially since there's a proposal that affects my area. It's not directly in my district. It's in Councilman Ambrosino's district, known as the Belmont Racetrack. And there are plans there now to put an arena. I want to know what that effect will have on the Nassau Coliseum, because the last thing we need in the town of Hempstead is an empty arena in the hub, in the heart of our town. And I don't know how we can be able to sustain two large arenas in our town. And I think we need to be more proactive and ask those questions about Belmont Racetrack and whether or not that arena would have a deleterious effect on the Nassau Coliseum, because we have a tremendous investment there and we have a tremendous interest in the hub. And quite frankly, I haven't been convinced that the economics work for a new arena at the Belmont Racetrack. I don't know if the traffic issues are going to have a deleterious effect on the people who live in the Elmont community and the Franklin Square community, which I think it will. And I think that basically we have to take a careful look at what's going on at Belmont Racetrack and how that might affect what we currently have, which is a taxpayer investment already in the Coliseum.
So, may I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, can we? Oh, did we vote? Yeah. Oh, call the roll, please, for items 10 through 48, excluding.
Councilman Ambrosino?
I just have 2 quick points. Supervisor, I'm sorry about this. I have 2 questions on 2 items. On item 18, I'm not sure who can answer this question. The low bidder on item, who would that be on item 18?
Mr. Haber, who worked on this committee with you? So the real estate?
Cost Control Associates.
No, I think it's, well,
What resolution?
it's Smith and DeGroat.
Oh, Smith and, okay.
Cost control. I have a question on both. Those are the two items I have questions on.
Okay, what's your question on Smith and DeGroat?
Smith and DeGroat, they won the proposal. It says $100,000 plus fees. It doesn't itemize the fees. Which kind of fee? Are those incidental, ancillary fees, or?
The fees are if, first, the committee was comprised of the town attorney's office had 2 representatives, purchasing had 2, and the supervisor's office had 2. We then called on the best 2 bids and then interviewed them in person. The real estate proposal is basically to get a complete summation of all the properties the town owns. There isn't a comprehensive list out there. And from one of the proposals, we found that the town owned over 800 properties worth over $5 billion, and we wanted to get a list, section, lot, block, zoning, and perceived value. The winning bidder, which you approved today, submitted a proposal of $100,000. There's 3 parts to it. The first, we're going to do it hopefully in 2 tranches. The first 2 tranches is just going to identify and value and have an accessible database that you can search by any way you like. And then the second part, which we just want to make sure we're comfortable with the first part, we'll go into depth some more. And the fees that they want to do associated that with are hourly fees above and beyond the $100,000, which I don't see really happening.
Well, and the fees will be consistent with the other ones. When they say fees, it's all consistent. Is that what you're saying, basically?
The fee is $100,000. There's no, and I don't know what other fees they're talking about.
I'm looking at the resolution. Fee amount, $100,000 plus fees. I get concerned whenever there's a low bid and they haven't.
No, the bids, this was actually, it's a good point, but this bid was actually right in the middle of the bids we received. It wasn't a lowball bid. It was the best provider of services that we chose. Yeah, I don't. I hear what you're saying, and I respect your point. I don't know what fees you're referring to.
If there is a fee, it should be a cap on it. Because
right, I see that, but
not to exceed.
Okay, but in the proposal there weren't any fees listed that I was concerned about. I don't think there's going to be anything additional. If it's maybe travel is what they were talking about, that could be. But, yeah, but since they're driving in our community, it can't be too far.
But if it's not limited, they could add anything they want because we approved plus fees. And it's wide open, and it could go over the $100,000 that we originally paid.
On top of that, if there's a concern, we can
put a cap on it.
Cap on it, sure.
Please, thank you.
Yeah, not to exceed. What's the reasonable amount?
Doesn't say.
Just a few grand. I wouldn't even do more than that.
2,500.
Fair enough.
Okay, so the fees will be supervisor.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you.
A motion to amend and vote on it.
Call the roll.
Call the roll.
Councilman Ambrosino? Councilman Blakeman? Councilman Diaz-Pasito? Councilman Dunn? Senior Councilwoman Gooseby? Councilwoman King Sweeney? Supervisor Gillen?
Aye.
Mr. Haber, I have a question on, I think, one other item that you're on. It's the item that's on my calendar, maybe it's the Cost Control Associates.
All right, so one of the things
I think the need for this, I think I understand, even though we've done it already, but the winning bidder here is Cost Control Associates. Every other bidder or proposer has a percentage of savings. They have an option of $135 per hour.
no, it's 20% of savings.
But the resolution says, or option $135 per hour.
So we do whatever cheap.
That's a good point. I'm not quite sure. When we spoke with them, we were assuming it was going to be 20%.
Mr. Haber, I believe it's the town's option.
Okay. So I'm assuming it's whatever's cheaper, but I shouldn't make assumptions until I know for sure.
Excuse me, that makes it our option then? Is that what it is? Our option as the board? Or is it somebody's going to say, okay, whatever?
The town of Hempstead's option.
the board?
Town board's up.
Well, I would imagine the department overseeing it would be able to, would do the math and
Let's amend this contract to direct whatever commissioner is going to be in charge of this to accept the cheaper of the two proposals.
well, that's the contract. No, I think the contract, I don't have it right in front of me, but my recollection is that the contract says that.
Wait,
Well, I'll make sure
Mr.
that it's there.
Ambrosino, I got a better idea. Why don't we just exercise our option now to take the 20% deal, and whatever they save us, they'll get 20%, and if they can't save us any money, they don't get any money.
True, yeah. The whole purpose of this RFP was not to cost the
Right.
town a penny.
So let's exercise the option now, and we'll say it's only 20%. Do you agree with that, Mr. Haber?
So let me get this straight.
Eliminate the option.
Let me just understand this. If they find no savings, they get paid zero?
Yeah. Every single person who submitted a RFP was under that complete impression.
10-4.
Second motion that Councilman Blakeman just made.
Yeah.
The amendment that he just made.
Right.
Okay.
And approve.
But before you do that, what happens if it would have come in cheaper as opposed to doing, if they put in 15 hours and they find $30,000 in savings, then it would have cost the town less to do the hourly option?
I think we'll take our chances.
Okay, your call.
Go. Councilman Ambrosino? Councilman Blakeman?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito? Councilman Dunn? Senior Councilwoman Gooseby? Councilwoman King Sweeney? Supervisor Gillen?
Aye.
Do what you got to do. Yeah. Did we do the moratorium? No, we haven't taken a vote yet. Yeah.
We have to vote on the administrative calendar, right?
Excuse me, did we vote on the moratorium yet?
No, we haven't voted on the calendar yet.
Okay, so we're going to vote separately on the moratorium?
No, I think we're voting on it's all part of the calendar.
Have we made that part of the administrative calendar?
Yes.
So that's item 47 now? I just want to make sure the moratorium's there and that we're voting on it. No, that's something different.
That's something else.
And item 28 was
35 now. Got it. Thank you.
We haven't voted on the calendar.
Okay.
Now we need to vote on the administrative calendar.
Yeah, call the roll on the calendar.
So,
Madam Clerk, will you call the roll on the administrative calendar?
Councilman Ambrosino?
Aye, with just two comments. With respect to the handout, the individual lawyers, we have attempted to have one lawyer represent the interest of the town board, and despite the supervisor saying that she never sued us personally, she amended the complaint. So apparently we are not being sued personally now, and while the lawyer that we chose to represent the town board to achieve economies of scale was rejected by the supervisor, raising some sort of conflict. I want to vote for my own lawyer. However, the thinking is among at least the majority, I haven't spoken to Councilwoman Gooseby, if we can come up with consensus to have one lawyer represent us all as the town board, we would try to do that. And so correct. Once we confirm the accuracy of what was represented to us. And I also question the addition of additional plaintiffs. I believe that might be time barred, and I just question the motivation. But my other point is, I also, on item number, so I vote aye on everything except item 28 on the change in rules. No matter how you slice it, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, it's limiting public comment, I vote no.
Okay. Councilman Blakeman?
Okay. With respect to the calendar, first of all, I would like Mr. Rock to confirm what he told me privately, that with respect to item 33, I was an employee of Fensterman law firm 5 years ago. I have no financial connection with them whatsoever, and you indicated that there is no reason why I have to recuse myself on that?
that is correct.
Okay, so I am going to vote aye on the full calendar with the exception of Items 29, 30, and 31, I am abstaining from voting on those three items.
Councilman Diaz-Bazito?
I just want to get a better understanding because I am not one of the attorneys that sit on this board. There are now additional plaintiffs named in this lawsuit. So are they? They're all getting their same a different attorney, or how is this working?
So how much money are we going to end up spending on lawyers?
Mitch?
Just to change my vote, item 28, I vote no.
Yes. Now, what?
Yeah, also I'm abstaining on the two hand-ups regarding the legal fees.
That's because you're using your own self. You're using it. I wouldn't use you because you charged it too much.
No.
Just the additional plaintiffs.
It's my understanding that they're being represented pro bono by that law firm.
By the same law firm that we're hiring today?
Who?
Yeah, Fensterman.
You mean the extra people that you're adding? They're being pro bono?
My understanding that the law firm is representing them pro bono.
Really? Is that true?
First of all, that it is true because the town board has no power to authorize payment for the representation.
I'm not questioning that. I'm just trying to understand it. That's
right.
Well, how will we know that the fees
Mr.
are
Pitnick.
really, I mean, Mr. Ra, how will we know that the fees are really for representing the supervisor against the board versus representing these taxpayers? How do you split that out?
I'm not the lawyer, but it seems like a conflict to me.
I don't think there is a conflict, and if they're being represented pro se, there are no legal fees associated with that representation.
But I thought we were paying for hers.
Mr. Leventhal has a conflict, yes.
We don't agree with that either. So I believe Fensterman has a conflict representing multiple plaintiffs. If Leventhal has a conflict, so does Fensterman. I'm concerned that Fensterman, I don't think we can authorize the appointment of the supervisor's counsel to the same law firm representing the other plaintiffs.
No. But she brought the lawsuit, so how can we use her attorney?
If there's a counsel, that's a matter that can be decided by court. Mr. Leventhal, I think, agrees that there is a conflict of interest in representing you.
Madam Majority Leader, Mr. Leventhal.
Yes, you're talking about being represented by the same counsel as a town board, so.
Okay, and can I weigh in on this? I think that the supervisor is entitled to choose her own counsel. However, there is an issue as to the allocation of taxpayer dollars in that lawsuit. So I would say that our condition of approving the Fensterman contract is conditioned upon not representing any other plaintiff other than the supervisor. Because obviously, it may not be a direct conflict, but it certainly gives the appearance of one.
I disagree. People on the same side of the V generally, many times have the same counsel.
Right, but the fees
Yeah,
are
but not paid for by taxpayer dollars. So.
But they're not being charged legal fees. There are no legal fees associated with their representation, as far as I'm aware.
But that's easy to say. It's a similar issue. So on the backs of the taxpayers, we're paying for that in reality. I mean, it's just.
Supervisor, just to respectfully disagree with you, if they are preparing a motion, and in the motion they're representing you at X amount of dollars per hour, okay, and they're also representing another plaintiff, in that circumstance, the public could say, well, wasn't that factored into representing you on the motion? It really creates a problem for you and for the town. I think the more prudent way is for any group that would like to join in, friend of the court or as a plaintiff, that they need to have their own counsel, and maybe somebody could represent them pro bono. There's the Turo Law Clinic, which is very proactive and things like that, the Hofstra Law Clinic. I just think that there is a terrible appearance problem having a law firm represent another plaintiff and do work for them and then bill the town for the work. It just, it's an optical thing. I'm not saying they would do that, but it's an optical thing.
I guess, should I continue to vote?
Actually, I'm going to ask for a 5-minute recess in the middle of this vote so I can discuss this with my attorney. Okay. Yeah.
So he's still at the